Who gets excited by statistics?
Kimi Antonelli finished sixth behind his teammate George Russell. And I actually think that was a really good run for Antonelli, who looked nowhere at the start of the weekend. And in doing so, he stayed out for a very long stint on the medium tyre. And in doing so, became the youngest ever driver to lead a Formula One race. So that's something for him, Jenny.
Oh, can I give you a stat?
Yeah, please.
A stat. Let's listen to the statistic.
I know you've probably got it up your sleeve. I'm going to beat you to it.
Go for it.
Just because. So Max Verstappen was the youngest driver to have set a fastest lap before today. He was 19 years and 44 days old when he set the fastest lap at the 2016 Brazilian Grand Prix. But he's been snaffled to that record, and there's not many records that you can snaffle him to. But Kimi Antonelli is 18 years, 224 days old, so he takes the youngest driver to set a fastest lap.
Oh, well done, Antonelli. It's a shame he doesn't get the extra point for it now.
Yay! He's got the statistic of being the youngest ever driver. Now, congratulations. He looks like he's a talent, and he, from what I've seen of him, not only seems talented, seems like a decent enough lad. So congratulations. But ultimately, these statistics do not mean a lot. Let's look at football, for example. James Milner, for a long period of time, was the youngest player to play in the Premier League. Now, just because you're the youngest person to get to do something, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go on to have, be an all-time great. Because, as decent a player that James Milner was, he's not going to appear in anybody's list of top 100 players to have played the game of football. Tidy player. I'm not knocking James Milner's talent. He was a decent player, but he's not the finest in terms of it. He doesn't make the list of top 100 players. Theo Walcott, decent enough player. I mean, it was selected by Sven-Göran Eriksson for the England squad for one of the World Cups when he was 16 years of age, but never had even half the career that Thierry Henry had. So just because you do something when you're young doesn't necessarily particularly mean anything. But especially when you look at it this way. Because age is one thing, all right? And what Antonelli's done is he's achieved the fastest lap in what is only his third ever Grand Prix. So again, congratulations for achieving the fastest lap in what is only your third ever Grand Prix. As opposed to with Max Verstappen, they've just said it was the Brazilian Grand Prix of 2016. We'll go and double check it. But if that's the case, that Max Verstappen, that was his first fastest lap in a Grand Prix, well, that was his 39th Grand Prix before he set a fastest lap. Now, let's be clear about this. Fastest lap's not that important. This thing here is far more important in terms of a statistic for Max, which is a P1, a race victory, back here, well before he set a fastest lap. And I know which one I'd rather have. I'd much rather have this thing here that Max achieved back here than the fastest lap that it took him longer to achieve. So, statistics can be pretty meaningless. And again, Max has achieved a win in the first Grand Prix that he had for that Red Bull team, which was the competitive team rather than being in the B team, which wasn't competitive by comparison. Okay, but he'd done 19 Grand Prix in the first season, then a further 4, so 23. So he's won his 24th race that he's competed in, but his first one that he's competed in a competitive car. But having had the experience of driving 23 races prior to that. So all of these things, you can't compare them because they're all different dynamics. Kimi Antonelli is in a competitive team. in the Mercedes, in a team that is in a car that is within a chance of winning a race. You have to say the Toro Rosso car wasn't really a car that was in with a chance of winning Grand Prix. Okay, to get a P4 in it, here and here, is impressive. Okay, let's be clear, it's impressive. But Max was very, very raw. He did cause collisions frequently. Okay, you're not going to trust a driver that is unproven, that they've got perhaps they saw him as a talent, but they didn't think he was. They didn't trust him to put him in their A team from the start. Whereas Mercedes have trusted putting Antonelli in their car from the start. McLaren trusted putting Hamilton in their car from the start. But the other dynamic is Hamilton was older, but back then, when Hamilton entered the sport, that was normal. Drivers had to build up their experience before being given an opportunity. These days, the dynamics are different. Younger lads are thrust into Formula One at an earlier age than they ever were. So trying to compare ages and say, oh, well, we've now got the youngest. Well, if guys didn't start their Formula One careers until they were in their 20s previously, well, anybody that comes in that's younger, well, you're going to be setting records for being the youngest, aren't you? Now, when you come to this notion of fastest lap, Antonelli's done it in his third race. It took Max till his 39th race. But there's some statistic here where in the second race that they ever competed in, then the pole position was by Felipe Massa. The fastest lap was Lewis Hamilton. So he's got a fastest lap in only his second Grand Prix. Antonelli's done it in his third Grand Prix. Max has done it in his 39th Grand Prix. But then there's differences as well. It's reported on Wikipedia that Hamilton had done 5,000 hours of testing in the McLaren car before even entering Formula One. So if you've had the opportunity to build up that level of familiarity with the machines that you're driving, then you've got a much better chance of being able to compete at the top level from an early stage of being in the sport. So these statistics, the point here is, it's not trying to say to you, oh, Lewis Hamilton is better than all of them. It's that because there might be a driver, I'm not going to bother going to find out if there's been a driver that has set a fastest lap in their first ever Grand Prix. It may have happened. I doubt it, but it may have happened. Could have done. I'm not going to even bother. It's an irrelevant statistic, really. Okay, it's an irrelevant statistic. But they make out as if it's an amazing feat. It's an amazing thing. One of the things that they quote in F1 is this idea of Grand Slams. You know, you've got the pole position, the fastest lap, and the race win. Don't they call that a Grand Slam? Something like that. Now, in the era where you were going to get a point for winning the fastest lap, the chance of a Grand Slam became massively impacted, and that is because you could be winning the race and have a margin of, say, 10 seconds over second place. Second place could be 30 seconds ahead of third. So second place has got the window with which to go into the pits for a fresh set of tyres, come out, still be in second, and have the chance of trying to go for that fastest lap point using those fresh tyres, keep their second place, but try and get the extra one. If you're winning that race and your margin's only 10 seconds, you can't go and pit for them fresh tyres because you'll drop down to P2. right? So just that dynamic alone impacts that chance. When there's no extra point, there's no point in second place going into the pits just to go and get tyres for a fastest lap. So it completely skews the statistics. So anybody looking to do statistical analysis to try and determine and demonstrate that one driver's better than another because they've got this amount of Grand Slams and whatever, it's an irrelevant statistic because you cannot compare these statistics over time. I saw on Twitter, I think it was Autosport, trying to say that Kimi Antonelli's already on 30-something points for the season. The most points recorded for a debut season was Lewis Hamilton with something like 109 points for the 2007 season. And Antonelli's already got 30. An irrelevant comparison because it was a completely different point scoring system. Somebody else did the data and said, actually, for it to be comparable, come the end of this season, Antonelli's going to have to score 300 odd points for him to have overcome the equivalent of what Hamilton scored in that season. But that's not even a valid comparison because this season, I think in that season there was 19 races. Well, what it will be. We'll go back. Wait there. There you go. 17 races in 2007. So Hamilton got what, 100, something like maybe 109 points in 17 races when the point scoring system was what it was. Well, let's see if we go back to the see what the point scoring system was at the Australian Grand Prix. We come down to the results. No, that's the qualifying. Let's go down to the points scored. So you only got points down to 8th position. You got 10 points for a win, 8 points for second, 6 for third. These days you get 15 points if you come third. Back then you got 6 points. You can't compare. Well, you can, but you're going to have to change the scores and you're going to have to then make adaptation. So Autosport trying to compare already. Oh, Antonelli's on 30. Hamilton got, I think it was 109. It's not a valid comparison until you kind of make the adjustments, then make the necessary adjustments. 9th and 10th, now you get 1 point for 10th, 2 points for 9th. 8th, you get 4. 7th, what you get 6 these days? You got 2 then. 6th, you get 8, you got 3 then. 5th, you get 10 now, you got 4 then. 4th, you get 12, you got 5 then. 25 for a win, you got 10 there. And 18 for second, you got 8 then. It's a completely different scoring system. But not only that, this season there's 24 races. You've got 24 races with which to score those points. And you've got however many sprint races this season. 5, 6 sprint races where you've got the chance of picking up 8 points down to 1 point in each of those sprint races. So if there's 6 sprint races this year and the potential to pick up points in each of them, well, 6, 8, 48 points on offer just from sprint races. So making valid comparisons between most points scored in a debut season, youngest ever to do this, it's all irrelevant. And yet the media is hyping the shit out of it. Oh, what an incredible performance. What a great record. Look, the only statistics are only relevant when you apply them correctly and apply context to them. And this is the problem. Media doesn't do that. Media is using it as headline material for clicks and to make the fanboys feel good about something. And they just don't understand the relevance or the context of them. So this isn't a whipping tool. This is not a video to discredit Antonelli. Congratulations, Antonelli. You've done well. You've set a fastest time in only your 3rd Grand Prix in a Mercedes car, which, doesn't appear to be the very fastest, but it's competitive. And you're a young lad in doing so. You've been The Mercedes have shown confidence in thinking you're good enough to be, to occupy one of their seats, and you've shown you're quick. Well done. Well done. But if you want to say, oh, he's the youngest, fine. But then you can look at other statistics. He's done it in his third race. There's a driver that's done it in their second race. Is there a driver that's did it in their first race? I don't know. I don't know what Schumacher did, but Schumacher's first race in Formula One was in a Jordan. Probably not. He might have done. I'm not even going to bother looking. Is there a driver that's actually set the fastest lap in their first race in Formula One? Was one of those races a race whereby you would get a point for setting the fastest lap? So was that fastest lap set late on in a race on a low fuel load on a brand new set of tyres because you've specifically pitted just to pick that up, where that dynamic wasn't in play for Antonelli and wasn't in play for Hamilton? So, irrelevant. And it's not a whipping tool for Max Verstappen. Okay, he held the record for being the youngest. A lot of people would have hailed that as being amazing. But it's not, in as much that, yes, congratulations, he was the youngest to have held that record at that moment in time. But it doesn't really mean anything. It was his 39th race. But actually, prior to setting the fastest lap, he'd already done something that was far, far better than a fastest lap, which was a race win. And he did that in his first race for the competitive team, which was a much bigger achievement than the fastest lap in his 39th race. It was his, 24th race where he got a win, but first race for a competitive team. But the competitive team didn't trust him in their car until he'd proven himself for 23 races. Whereas Antonelli and Hamilton have been trusted by the competitive team from the outset of their career. So again, you shouldn't be comparing these, and you shouldn't get the fanboys trying to use these statistics to somehow prove the greatness of their favourite. Till you apply context, then these statistics are meaningless. But you're not getting that education. The media aren't really putting it out like that. If they did, then people would be a lot more, they'd be better educated, and you would have less conflict. You'd have less of this, these fanboys that would want to try and jump up and use those as battling tools. Oh, the top trumps of my driver's better than your driver. Look, understand the dynamics of this. This isn't a fight over the situation, but they want you to be like that. They want you to be ignorant as to what the statistics actually reflect, but they're quite happy to see you shout, "Yeah, my driver did this at the youngest age, so therefore that makes him." It doesn't, because you can't compare. You actually cannot make valid comparisons because the dynamics continually change. Point scoring system changes. Age of entry into the sport changes. Experience levels prior to being in the sport changes. The amount of testing time the drivers were allowed, that changes the situation for them all. Drivers should be allowed to test Formula One cars far more than they do. Now, back in the day, if that's true on Wikipedia that Hamilton had 5,000 hours of testing prior to going into Formula One, well, fine, good. That's what it should be. It should be that you are given the opportunity to drive an F1 car for long enough so that when you do get the chance to compete in it, then you're familiar with what it is you're driving and you're capable of competing. That's how things should be. You're much less of a danger to everybody else out on track if you've had the experience of driving that machine. So if they're not doing that these days, well, you bloody well should be. As I've said in previous videos, there should be no way that you are limited in the amount of practice you're allowed to have for your sport. The way that you get the best out of your abilities is by practicing and practicing and practicing. And to do that, you need to practice in the machine that you're competing in. Not simulation and not in a different form of car, because it doesn't replicate the conditions and the machine that you're driving in the actual contest, in the actual competitive environment. People are, in the most part, unable to identify the different factors, and there's more than I've identified here. I'm just identifying the basic differences which make valid comparison just futile. It is absolutely futile trying to make these comparisons. So, to the people that Lewis Hamilton is their favourite, they will win on the basis of saying, well, he achieved the fastest lap on his second Grand Prix. But what are you winning? What are you winning? Nothing. The Max Verstappen fans, they will have said, oh yeah, but Max was younger. Right, but he started in the sport younger. But he didn't set the fastest lap on his second race. No, but he wasn't in a car that was capable of contesting for the championship at the time. No, but they didn't trust him. No. You know what I mean? So look, it's all ridiculous. There's no point in arguing over this. There's no point in arguing over it. But you're going to get the fanboys that just don't understand that. They just want to argue. They want to incite. Just take it for what it is. We see some competitors come into the sport, and you can recognise quality. I recognise quality in Kimi Antonelli. I recognise quality in Lewis Hamilton from the outset, all them years ago. Max Verstappen, being totally honest, when he came into the sport as a, 16-year-old kid, 17-year-old young kid, you knew that he was just another one of these that is the son of a former F1 driver, and hence he becomes an F1 driver. He was different from the other sons of F1 drivers that we've seen, in that he did appear that he'd be able to contest, whereas many of them they can't. Many of them you think, no, he's not really got it. A few have, but there's many names come and gone that you're just like, well, you're only in it because of who your dad was. Max looked like he had flashes of speed, but looked very, very patchy. Very patchy in terms of did crash quite a number of times. The drivers were concerned about how he drove. In fact, he was dangerous. Now, he evolved, and up until 2021, my view of him is like, okay, he's Max Verstappen. He's all right. Pretty quick. He might evolve into something that's half decent. Didn't think neither here nor there. Didn't particularly, wasn't a big fan of him, but didn't hate him. Just was what he was. But then what you saw in 2021 with Max was he was just allowed to get away with driving in a manner that's not acceptable. He drove in a manner where he was throwing his car into positions where it was like, you're going to be forced off the track, otherwise we're going to crash. And Hamilton yielded. Hamilton's experience was such that he would rather get out the way of it, avoid a collision, avoid getting taken out, stay in the race, and then try and pick up as many points as he can. Try and track him down. Try and pick an opportune moment later in the race and get the position back. Was that the right approach? Well, it showed experience, didn't it? And in the end, over what we saw of the season, the number of times that Max was favoured and allowed to get away with that, Hamilton did extremely well, came back, and did overcome that. They had to break the rules of the sport to deny Hamilton his 8th championship. And then since then, it's been the Max Verstappen show, hasn't it? And we can question the validity of all that. Like I say, they breached the cost cap in 2021. 2022 meant that was an illegally developed car, developed with a much bigger, a bigger budget than the other teams developed their car with, giving them an advantage. 2023, a development of that car, an untouchable car. You got Checo Perez winning races, lots of Red Bull 1-2s. 2024, the season starts, that pattern continues until about race 10 or race 11. And then the sport has to try and revive interest in it. And we see the Ferraris winning a couple. We see Mercedes winning a few. We see McLaren emerge then as being the better car. And then this year, who knows? We're given the narrative that McLaren's the best car now. And Red Bull's only the 4th best car. But it's Super Max that can make it win. But they want us arguing. They want us fighting. And we get the fanboys. We get the fanatics that will come to this channel inciting, projecting their hatred. But with all this conflict, actually understanding what's going on, what's relevant, what isn't, that will actually cut out conflict. If people can understand each other, if people can understand what's really going on, if people can understand relevance, often there's nothing to fight about. That happens with many things in this world. But that conflict benefits some, and hence they keep you fighting. And the fools keep fighting. The conditioned minds. Anyway, that'll do on this one. Thank you for your time. I will leave you with this also irrelevant statistic which show the lap leaders. You know, who led the most amount of laps? It doesn't really matter, okay, because really what matters is who's leading this one here when the checkered flag goes, because that's the bit that matters. But Lewis Hamilton here, in only his first race ever in Formula 1, he led a few laps there. There he is, laps 19 to 22, when the others probably pitted. And Hamilton stayed out on track, causing him to lead a lap in the same way that Antonelli will have led the laps when he did at the Japanese Grand Prix we've just had, just the 3rd race of the season. There you go. First ever race, Lewis Hamilton leads a few laps. But again, the statistic of most laps led you can not be leading any of these laps, but as long as you're winning the last one, you're the one that wins the race. Thanks for your time.